So now we have spent 8 episodes together talking about the systems, resources, and tools necessary to managing a transitional housing facility. And now we are on our last one, which is scaling up and turning your first house into a citywide impact. So in today's episode, that's what we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about it as we talk about systems and resources. So let's dive right in. So I'm first of all going to say this has been an enjoyable series because I wanted to make sure I created something that gave you more than just simply a step-by-step process for setting up a transitional housing facility. Sometimes we miss the parts that really matter, and not saying the other ones don't, but until you can understand how you can grow your business to this level of where you make an impact, that's where we really want to go. And if you fully understand what it takes to make an impact and you sort of know it up front instead of working in it and then being in it and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was all this, that's going to be worth its weight in gold for me to show that to you first. And that's why I wanted this one to be unique, where we talked about the systems. We talked about things that make life easier so you're not in so much stress dealing with your transitional housing facility, because you must have systems. But as you look at scaling up, and I know we talked about in the last series where we were talking about transitional housing, we talked about scaling up in the levels of going from one to multiple properties or something larger. This is a little different. This scaling up is talking more along the lines of growing that program and scaling up the program itself. It might not mean physically taking a business model and adding more properties to it. It could just simply be taking the program itself and scaling it up. So that's where I want you to understand the difference in what we're talking about in this episode and when you should expand your program. Because it's always going to come back to making sure your systems are in place. Because if you don't have systems in place, solid ones that create automation that touch every aspect of your business, you are going to be doing yourself a disservice. You're going to find yourself stuck or overwhelmed, because that is what allows you to grow, will be the systems you put in place. Without systems, I would fail, and I already know that. So my systems, and I'm constantly fine-tuning those systems. So even today, we're still fine-tuning it because it's never done. I just want you to know it's never done, okay? You're going to get it and create it, and you're going to tweak it for the rest of your life. And that's what you should be doing, because if you're not doing that, constantly looking at your systems, constantly looking at your processes, constantly looking at your procedures and evolving with the time, you're going to find yourself where you're going to be antiquated, or it's going to be things that aren't working so well. We're constantly looking at how we can make our systems better. I think they call that like a Kaizen effect or a Kaizen process, where you're constantly looking at your processes and fine-tuning them and making them better. That's what the last company I worked at taught me. I learned how to come in and make systems better. Systems that we thought was working well that could work better. It's about efficiency. When you can be efficient in the way in which you operate, that is what will allow you to stand the test of time and then make a full impact in a city that you want to impact on a large scale. So, and that can be just simply a program. You could have a program solely dedicated to a particular niche that could be so impactful for a community that people are going to flock to you. And it doesn't have to be big. You just want to make sure that it creates results. So as you're looking at your program and you're wanting to consider, should you expand, First, make sure that your systems are in place for every aspect that you're touching, from the residents, your staff, your agencies, your referral partners. Like, all of these people play a part in your growth. And as you fine tune those programs and you fine tune those systems for your program, you have the opportunity to expand it. And when I say expand it, you might be able to add layers of funding to it because you've created results. And that's the best way to know when you should expand your program. If you're seeing signs that you are ready to grow beyond just adding people, like a wait list is one thing, okay? You have a wait list, but we're talking about growth, where you maybe could churn a few more people through your program faster. So if you have a program, let's say it's like a 6-month window program where you're getting them in, you're giving them skill sets, you're helping them move on, and you're transitioning them, and then maybe you have another layer that actually tracks them when they're gone, then now you got another group coming in. You can churn them out faster and create better results. Simply by doing things like that, you can expand you're ready for growth. You can expand your program because now you can talk about helping them after they leave you. Like, how amazing is that? You're creating services for people after they're gone too. And if I can say anything, that is a missing element that I see right today that agencies are doing. Agencies sometimes focus on the wrong, like, they, not saying it's wrong, but they want to get them out. Like, if they have them in a shelter, they quickly want to get them out so that they have room for more people. But when they get them out and they didn't successfully do it and make sure they were stable, by the time they get out, it's like a revolving door. They come back to the shelter. Like, who wants to create that? You want to create something that after they leave you, that you're checking up with them. See, that means you're ready for expansion. Those are things I'm thinking about. And then you build on top of that. Maybe now make them mentors. Like, these are things that are in my head all the time, of which you can just simply expand your program so that you're ready for growth. But you can't be ready for growth yet until you make sure that your systems are in place and you've documented things, and that you're now fine-tuning it to where you're considering other ways that you can grow. And then that's going to allow for you to determine if your funding is strong to be able to scale to something like that. Because let's just say you were to create an amazing transitional housing facility that caters to individuals who are going to be out, let's say, in a year, and then now there's an opportunity to funding on the back end. Now you've got an opportunity that you can add because you're ready for that. But those are the things that you should be thinking about as you're thinking about scaling up, not necessarily adding more properties, but adding more services or adding more programming or adding more growth opportunities. Like, that is scaling up, not necessarily just getting more property. And I would love to see you grow that way, to be able to impact more and have more of a quality of an impact versus so much a quantity. And you can still have quantity in the number of people that you can be able to help, but you don't have to have a whole bunch of houses to do it. You can literally do it in that one building that you have, or in that one space that you have. An example that's making me think of, I have 5 acres right now in rural Missouri that we are talking about this very thing. We have a beautiful system in place. All of our systems are in place for housing, and our goal is to expand on where we are already. Now, we can expand without buying another building. You just sort of add on what you've got and add on additional space so that you can be able to bring in more individuals to create results. That's what I'm talking about, is simply expanding your program and seeing where your facility is ready for growth, ready for the next level. And those are the things we're talking about. Now, as you think about the biggest mistakes that you want to avoid when you're expanding, I want to say you don't want to grow too fast without having a solid foundation. And that foundation is your financial plan. One of the episodes I talked about being able to understand the finances of your business and understanding how it impacts you. When you have a solid financial plan, you will know whether, oh, well, no, that might not be right now, something we could do right now, because we need to make sure, these things are in order first. But if you didn't have a financial plan, you really didn't know that up front. And I had mentioned that because we grew pretty fast, I believe. and we were still back and forth with having a solid accountant that we needed to work with to make sure our financials were solid. So fast forward, what was that, 13 years ago? We had grown so fast, and I was really just wanting to keep up, and I had gotten advice from all these different people. It wasn't a solid financial plan because they didn't know what they were talking about. I had a challenge. I don't want to say I struggled, but I had a challenge with my financial plan, but we were still growing because the need was there. We had opportunities to get more, so we just kept getting more, and it kept growing bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, it was like, whoa, slow down. You want to make sure you have a solid financial plan as you're building, and that can be a pitfall you can fall down when you're talking about expanding. So don't try to grow too fast. Grow at the pace that you need to grow at, but you need to make sure that your financial plan is solid. And that's why I'm a firm believer in how you're structured. If you want to know more about structure, look at one of the other episodes on that, or send me some comments below. I'll gladly send it to you. But you want to make sure that you are solid as it relates to your financial plan. So as you grow, it keeps up with your growth, and you see where your holes are before the holes get really big and gaping, right? So that's what I would say do. And then one of the things that I notice people do is sometimes they expand without first making sure that their existing systems are in place. That's why I constantly say your systems, you got to constantly go in and refine them, tune them up, because you don't want to expand and not have a strong systems in place that you currently are operating by. Those are the things that's going to help you be able to scale up because those systems are in place. Systems and financials, that's a part of your systems, are your financials. So those are two solid pieces that you want to avoid you want to avoid making mistakes in those areas when you're talking about expanding. And then as we talk about, because even though we are talking about scaling up and how one building could impact significantly across a city, you can just have that one program, but you can also consider, as you could replicate potentially what it is that you're doing in another area. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do it. You don't need to get another building, but you could partner with somebody who has one. I talk a lot of times with a lot of my students so that I don't have to do, I personally really don't want to open out one more facility by myself. I'd rather do it with a partner. I'd rather work with somebody who's doing it exactly the way we got our systems laid out. Systems are already laid out. All you need to do is bring your knowledge that you bring to the table with your passion, and now we could talk about doing something greater. I would rather expand that way and figure out how to replicate success that way instead of doing it by me physically opening up another building in another state, in another city. I don't want to do any of that. I'd rather partner or at least coach you. I would love coaching you. If you're interested in learning how to do this in your city, then tap me. I've created amazing courses that you can purchase and be able to do that very thing and work with me in the school community as we talk about this stuff so that you can too grow in your area. And I'm expanding without me physically having to open another building. You can do that too. So in that same breath, whatever you build and whatever niche you create can be so unique that nobody else does it across the country. You'll have other people who want to learn it too. So now that we've talked about this in culminating everything with scaling up in this space, you now have everything you need to be successful in launching, managing, and scaling a successful transitional housing program. So if you're serious about making a long-term impact, then I want you to make sure you're joining our school community. That is tonyschool.com, TONISKOOL.com. That's our Transitional Housing Maximized school community in which other compassionate investors join to be able to talk about this work. And I want you joining that. I want you to connect. I want you to talk to other people. I want you to get the free resources I'm going to offer you there, because that is where you fully can expand on what it is that you want to build. And guess what? You'll get an opportunity to share your milestones there too. Share the things that you're doing to move yourself in that area in your community, because I'm looking forward to hearing it. And I want to just thank you for taking the time to listen today and subscribing to our channel. And I look forward to you joining the ranks of us who are compassionate investors, because we want to transform the world. So let's get out there and do it. And so it is.